Hey there, my name is Lilith and I'm the creator behind fashion art label Ziggenthaler, based in Melbourne, Australia. Mind you, I'm not there at the moment. And today I'm going to be talking you through a tutorial on how to paint mandalas on fabric. So today I'm going to be showing you how to paint mandalas on fabric such as denim. I used denim for both of these mandalas. It is a great way to personalize your clothing. It can be added onto any sort of denim, whether that's jeans or jackets. I've done a couple of designs on a couple of clients' jackets or just original works that I've sold over the last couple of years, and I thought it would be a great starting point if you are looking to start painting on denim, or even just personalizing anything that you have in your cupboard, or upcycling any jackets instead of buying new ones. I have actually broken this tutorial up into 3 different levels, so if you are a beginner you can follow along. Otherwise, if you already have the skills sort of down pat and want to develop your design or have some more insight into how you can extend your mandala and different techniques, I do have that as well. So this is a tutorial for anyone. If you're just starting out, if you're wanting something a little bit more difficult, or if you're wanting to extend your design knowledge a little bit more. So things you will need for this tutorial: you will be needing fabric paints. I use the brand Color Opaque. They do have a really good range of shimmer colors, which really help a lot if you are painting mandalas on denim. I find that they pop a lot and they just really suit the design a lot as well. Otherwise, you can use any sort of opaque color. I do use white for my second mandala. You will also need some fabric chalk or pencils. You will need paintbrushes. I use a small paintbrush to be able to paint all of the little details. You will also need a ruler to help with your lines. And then what you need to do is you need to look around your house. There are so many objects in your house that you can use to actually aid the creation of your mandala. Anything that's round, this is going to help you map out a guide for your mandala and to make sure that your mandala is as symmetrical as it can be. So we're going to start off with a beginner mandala, which is this mandala I did here. It is on a denim fabric. I just did it on a purse that I had on hand. As you can see, this design is very much based on circles, and the circles really guide the details of the mandala, and this is sort of a good beginner design. You don't necessarily have to copy the exact details of this, but you can sort of do whatever you want, as the design is guided by a lot of the circles. So first, what you want to do is you want to get your piece of fabric that you want your mandala to be on, and then what you're going to do is you're going to grab your ruler and your fabric chalk or fabric pencil and rule 2 lines intersecting each other so you have a cross. This is basically going to be the skeleton of your mandala, and it'll just make sure that when you do details through the circles that they're actually going to be even on each level. And then what you want to do is you want to grab some of your round objects or items, and you're going to trace them around this cross to make different sized circles. And this is going to help you paint out the different levels of your mandala and make sure that it is as symmetrical as possible. I know that there's a little bit of an emphasis on symmetry on these designs, but really if you stay consistent with a lot of your details, if you do stuff up or maybe one detail isn't as big as the other, it's not going to be something that's noticeable, because I find that mandalas are quite like optical illusions, and when the eye or the mind looks at it, there is a sense of assumption when looking at it that everything is symmetrical when it's not. So basically with this design I'm going to go in with a metallic gold from the Color Opaque range. So first I like to start by painting 3 or 4 circles, and this is just going to be the middle of your mandala. I like to do 2 or 3 just so that we have the center mapped out. It's not really the best place to be putting details, obviously, because it's so small. We can start putting the details the further we go out. So then what I like to do with this specific design, I tend to stay more with you know, ovals or half circles, and I basically just paint them around the circle and basically just develop the design from that. I do use the chalk designs to make sure I do stay somewhat in the chalked lines that I've made, but it's just going to help us make the best looking mandala we can. I also decided to go in with bronze. You can definitely change up the different colors that you use with your mandala to add interest. I do a little bit of details. I do a little bit of bronze details to create some sort of, just to create a bit of a unique aspect to the design. Basically, your design is being guided through these circles of the mandala, which means that you don't necessarily have to use your brain to figure out where each detail stops and starts, because it is something that is quite intuitive when you've got those circles to work within. I like to finish my mandalas off with either a thicker line around the outside. Otherwise, with this design, I did do a bronze outline just to make the boundaries of the mandala a little bit more known and to make it stand out. So the next level of this tutorial is for sort of intermediate people. If you found that mandala quite boring and uninteresting or much below your level, you can do this next design. We're sort of going to venture away from the guidance of the circles in this mandala, and we're going to actually create a mandala with more layers and more sort of fan details, which will create more of a flower-like mandala. So I did this on a scrap piece of denim fabric. I didn't have any jeans or jackets at my disposal at this point in time, so I just did that. But make sure you can do this on any particular project that you want. So I started out by chalking out my guide with my 2 lines, and then also making sure that I did chalk out a couple of circles just to guide my design. So we're going to start this design off the same way that we started the previous design. Obviously you're going to do a couple of circles, 3 or 4 circles, just to establish the middle of the mandala. As I said before, so instead of using circles to guide our design, we're actually going to be using lots of different layers where different parts of the design are going to begin and end, not necessarily in the same place. It's basically just like painting a flower, where you want to go in with your first layer, and then you sort of use the layer or even just the negative space between the details that you've just painted to sort of springboard the next detail. So using the negative space, you can create your second or third layer. I also have this particular detail that can look pretty cool. It's basically a fan detail where you create an oval as the centerpiece of a detail. And then what you want to do is then create these fanned out details. So it's almost like it's a flower opening up. So we're basically making details that aren't necessarily on the same layer as the rest of the design. We're creating a foreground and a background, and it sort of makes this very flower-like or petal sort of inspired design. This mandala is a little bit bigger than my other one, which means I can actually utilize a different thickness of lines. This can sort of help create, as I said, that a different dimension to the mandala where there's sort of a foreground, a middle ground, and a background to the design, as all of the details sort of come out beneath the detail before it. And I use thick lines to accentuate this. So that is the intermediate mandala. As I said, it's a little bit of a step up from the first mandala we did, but it does create a bit of a more interesting looking one, and it's definitely something that you can develop your skills to create. And so the next level to this tutorial is the difficult level. I've named this the difficult level because the nature of painting a mandala is obviously starting from a center point and establishing detail that is consistent and gradually radiating out. But with this one, we're going to be creating what I like to call an extension to the mandala, but it isn't necessarily an extension that focuses on or comes from the middle of the mandala, rather interest that comes out. So this can definitely add different direction to your mandala. It might fill a space that you want. It also just creates a little bit of asymmetry and a little bit of interest. So basically what we want to do is we want to be using the same skills that we have been doing with these last mandalas, and that's using details that sort of build off of each other. It may need a lot of experimenting to see what goes well and what doesn't. So what I try to keep as a concept for myself is that you can almost use it as a way to create the illusion that they are leaves, stems of a flower sort of popping out the side of the flower. I try to use that to sort of help me create the extensions to my mandala. So basically what you want to do, what I did here was I painted first just a shape of a leaf, and I created different levels around that leaf, and then I also sort of filled those in with little details so it's consistent around the whole shape. And when you're confident doing that, you can also add different shapes. As you can see, I added these two leaf-like structures next to this. And then I also added sort of this swirl next to the leaves to create a little bit more interest. And then a tinier swirl next to it. This is obviously the difficult level, as you need to be sort of relying a little bit more on your intuition and your eye to create an extension of your mandala, because you obviously don't have this focus point that is guiding you. You need to sort of rely on adding detail and being able to create a sort of harmony within the design that doesn't look like, that looks like it's actually a part of the mandala and not something that we've just painted there just because. I use a thicker line as the outline to sort of reinforce the boundary of the design, and it turned out pretty well. Obviously, then what you need to do is you just need to follow the instructions on your fabric paint in a ways to set the paint onto the fabric. Set a color opaque, you just need to iron it. Once it's ironed, you can then lightly wash your design, and the fabric chalk and fabric pencil should try to wipe it off with a wet cloth, otherwise it should come out with water. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you got something out of this tutorial. I really want to start doing a couple more tutorial-like videos to help anyone that wants to start painting or personalizing their clothes. So I will be uploading a couple more of these, so if you'd like to stay tuned, please subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.